groups.
Well, no.
Or
So
gangs.
what I did was like, hey, can I walk home with you guys? Like, so innocent. And like, the guys looked at me weird. Like, why would you ever say that? And then they're like, yeah, sure.
And then they just welcomed you in. Or,
Yeah, they kind of just welcomed me in.
So was it a gang or was it a group?
It was just a group of guys at a time.
Oh, okay.
But along the way, we would always like encounter like other neighborhoods.
Right.
Because it would always like walk around the same route, and then people would just break off into like whatever neighborhood that they go to. So sometimes it would be like up to a group of 40 kids like walking
that's
together.
a lot. Yeah. No, because we would walk home, but we live in a small townhouse neighborhood, so it was only like 5, 6, 7 of us.
Yeah.
So it was a very small group that we
Definitely,
would walk to
I
and from
want to
school.
say it took us about like 30 minutes to walk home every day. So I don't know in terms of mileage. I want to say walking wise, maybe it's pretty close to 2 to 3 miles home every day. But I mean, being a kid, like I don't care. I mean, we're full of energy.
Right.
So, but that was my beginning story. One of my most like traumatic, I want to say traumatic, but one thing that always resonates in my head, once I got into the 6th grade, one of my reading teachers said I wasn't supposed to make it just because I came from an elementary school.
Make it in terms of like getting a
Succeed.
job.
Yeah, well, more like succeed.
They told you straight up that a teacher said that.
A teacher said that to me.
I could never imagine saying, because at one point I was a 3rd grade teacher, and I could never see myself saying that to a kid. You know, like, I think being practical and realistic is important.
Yeah.
You know, at least for parents and teachers to share that with their students.
Right.
But never crush their dreams and just say you can't do something.
Well, no,
You know?
it was really weird because it was like end of a class at one time, and apparently there was a new elementary school that was being made. I was the 3rd year of that school after it was created, and so like my older 2 years older than me, those kids went through 6th, 7th, 8th grade by themselves. There were no 8th graders, no 7th graders when they were 6th graders.
Yeah.
So my year was the first year we actually had 6th, 7th, 8th at that school, middle school. And so we had 2 feeder schools that generally came from that. It was Oakland Terrace and Highland Elementary School. I came from Highland. And then the other school was like on the other side of kind of town or this area. And those were like the very prestigious kids, like more affluent kids, if you could say.
It wasn't a private school, though.
It wasn't a private school.
Right.
They were both public. But what happened was they were looked differently because my elementary school was more Hispanic, black.
That's like even like the high schools in the area, you know, like
Yeah.
if you're from Down County or Western Montgomery County, you know, each school has a little bit different vibe and stereotype to it.
Right.
Or personality.
And that's where it came in because I slowly realized once I got into like my GT, like the gifted and talented program, you remember that? Like once I got into that program into middle school, that's when I started seeing less and less kids from my elementary school succeeding, and they were kind of just dropping back into like the regular classes, where I kind of just like stayed, and I kind of just became a chameleon. Like one trait I know I generally have is that I kind of just like bother kids or bother other kids.
Use that annoying kid that just provoked other kids to
because it's more
through
like
their emotions.
I hate. I think this is generally I'm learning about myself right now. Is I hate authority. So when people I hate. I like to call it political identity. Like if you're born a certain way or you're raised a certain way, you kind of see yourself as different. And I think I'll get to this with you too. It's like your identity doesn't have to be what you do. You can do whatever you want, but people generally don't like you if they can't label you. And that's my biggest advocate as myself. And I was going to ask you, like, how did you feel growing up? And I was going to ask you, like, well, how did you feel about? That's a very long-winded way to get to asking this question. Like, did you ever feel like you had any problems finding your identity because you didn't find people like you back in high school?
Yeah, I think most definitely. I mean, at the time, you don't really notice it. You just like, you roll with your group of friends and that's that. And you just hang out with them and you just, well, from at least our county is very diverse, so you don't really think twice about it when you're growing up. But I think after high school is when I really realized that I didn't really roll with my own kind, so to speak. And I've also thought, why? How come I didn't have Asian friends? And I think part of it was actually, I think I was embarrassed or a little bit shy about being Asian because it wasn't.
Did you know that in high school, or this is hindsight now?
I think actively, in the moments, I did know. Because, or I didn't know per se, but it was more like I avoided, being categorized as Asian.
Okay.
In terms
it wasn't deemed popular. Or
yeah, like,
cool.
I mean, I knew I was Vietnamese or I knew I was Asian, but I didn't hate it, but I definitely I shied away and was embarrassed of some of the things.
Right.
So, for example, like in elementary school, when my mom would pack, lunch for me, it would be leftover food from the night before.
Right.
And it was, rice and meat or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And then we would come to lunch, and I feared that kids out smelling my food and thinking
Judging
it was
you.
weird and saying, oh, what is that, or because it wasn't like typical Chinese food either. Sometimes it wasn't just like fried rice or an egg roll. It was food that was.
Speaking about that, what you got? I have my sister-in-law is Vietnamese, so I know a little bit.
What do you mean?
My sister-in-law, my brother's wife is Vietnamese.
Okay.
So growing up, I would go over her house with my brother, and she would make us food. So I was like, if you could describe some of those foods.
Oh, okay. Some of the foods. I mean, I think everyone knows, or for the most part, people know pho.
Yeah.
Not pho, but pho. It's PHO, but it's pho. It's a beef noodle soup, with very tasty broth, and people like to eat it, either as breakfast or a hangover meal.
Yeah.
Lunch or even dinner sometimes.
Oh, so you would have that at lunch in elementary school?
No. I never brought pho to school because it was just too hard. It was the soup and noodles and you had to boil it and stuff like that. But
Right.
I would bring like rice with meat and vegetables that we had from the night before.
Okay.
Whereas when I saw other kids, they had pizza Lunchables or peanut butter jelly sandwiches and Sunny Delights and fruit roll-ups, and I'm just like, I have rice with like chicken or something like that. Which is, it sounds normal now, but at the time, I'm just like, I want to have a pizza Lunchable. I want to have, chicken nuggets from the cafeteria.
You just want to be a part of the group.
Yeah, so I would be really shy about eating it. I would, hold my container and open it up, and scoop out a piece of rice real quick and then eat it, and then shut it so the smell and the aroma wouldn't come around the lunch table in the room.
Oh, wow.
So, like that, I was self-conscious of those things as an elementary school kid.
Right.
So I think, that was part of being embarrassed of being Asian.
Yeah.
So I didn't realize it much more until my college years and growing up into adulthood, that I didn't embrace my Asianness.
Yeah.
I didn't embrace my Asianness as much as
you got to see more people like you. Too,
yeah.
Growing up.
Yeah. So when I joined those Asian orgs, I was like, oh, these Asians are like me. They like to play sports. They like to watch movies. They like to do everything like any other American person would.
Right.
They're not like fobs, which is a term people use like, fresh off the boat or someone that's new to the country or a foreigner.
Right.
So I mean, I didn't embrace it as much. And like when my parents try to speak to me, when they poke, they're trying not poking, but when they try to pick me up from school, they would speak to me in language, in Vietnamese, and I would just respond in English, even though I could respond in Vietnamese, because I was a little bit shy and embarrassed about that. Yeah.
Interesting. So actually, I think maybe like a year or two ago, I put up a poll on like my Instagram, just saying like, here's two choices. Would you rather be wrong in a group or be right by yourself? Where would you put yourself in that situation?
What do you mean by being wrong and right?
So saying like, if everyone says the sky is green, but if everyone around you said that the sky is green, would you rather be in that group, or would you look outside and be like, no, it's blue?
I think for anyone, it's easy to kind of go along with the crowd because it's because sometimes they're your friends or they're your family members, and you're just like, oh, you know what? Since they're credible sources, I'm gonna believe them, or I'm gonna go with what they're saying.
Yeah.
But I mean, if I saw something that I didn't agree with or I didn't think was right, then of course I would choose, what is right over what is wrong.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I mean, I bring that up because I was generally surprised because it was legit like probably 55-45, but the 55 was they'd rather be wrong in a group. They legit
Why?
wrote that.
Did you get feedback on like why they responded that way?
For me, it was more just like general market research, because afterwards I put up another poll saying, do your actions follow up with your previous decision? And majority said yes, but there was a slight few that said their belief doesn't follow their actual choices.
Okay.
So I just thought that was really interesting to me. And like growing up and then starting this podcast, I like perspectives, and it's very interesting for me to share my perspective as well as help others learn about themselves along with me, because like you're learning about me at the same time I'm learning about you and how you think and how you were growing up.
Right.
Because I've taken this podcast to Seattle, San Diego, New York. And it's really funny how we could do the same thing, whether it's football or just growing up in like school.
Right.
But we have totally different experiences, like regardless of race.
Who do you normally seek to have on these podcasts or to interview?
People who just want to sit down and talk to me, or people who are just open to it. Because a lot of people they're very shy to speak their mind about certain things. And I'm learning to cope with that. And all I want to do is help people who are open to sharing their story have a platform and to share with others.
Right. Yeah. That's good. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
No, I appreciate you. And my biggest thing, I wanted to hear what you wanted to do in terms of your future, because we've talked off air again about how you want to grow as a football coach, and like I want to see if we can help you troubleshoot it together, whether it's with me or if anyone else who watches this has ideas to reach out to you, like, hey, I know somebody who could help you with X, Y, and Z type of thing.
So I mean, I think it's also interesting that people dub me as a coach, because I do, that's what I've done a lot of in my recent years. And that's what I also try to identify myself as. But, it's more than just playing sports and just coaching people about sports and winning championships and winning games or losing games even. Like...
It kind of teaches you, like, life lessons.
It does,
sports.
Exactly. I was just going to say that. So sports, has a way of teaching you life lessons. And I've learned so much playing, high school football, and then playing flag football, post high school, and in the first early years of college, and then moving into coaching. And that's a big reason why I wanted to coach, because I wanted to teach people that sports can teach you life lessons, and some of those lessons can be anything from putting in the hard work, persevering, resilience, and when you commit to something, how they could develop, and if you have a purpose and a passion for something, it could develop into something more special than that. And for even for people to find out about themselves, and I think sports has a way of doing that, because it pushes you to the very brink. Yeah. Football and sports is just very blunt. There's a winner and there's a loser. There's no really in between. There's no gray area, and I think the work that you put in is a reflection of how you are as a person and how you approach life.
One thing that really stood out to me, what you just said, was commitment. It really does teach you commitment, because there's a lot of times where you're going to feel down, and no matter what sport you play, whether you get injured, whether you take a L, or some type of adversity catches you during sports, and it's really common and it's really relatable. And for someone to stick it out and still continue that dream of trying to win a championship or whatnot, that shows volumes in character to me. And then on top of that, I want to say, I was not resilience. I kind of just went in and out of my head just now. Teamwork. That's what I want to get into.
Yeah.
Especially when you work in team sports, it teaches people how to drop their ego. And I'm a big advocate of teaching people how to drop their egos.
Why? In what situations have you experienced people that had a lot of ego?
Well, me personally, like growing up in high school, like I always thought like I'm in it by myself. I didn't think that no one will ever understand me, this and that. And then again, this is why I'm really advocating learning perspectives, and I want people to either like travel in order to like find out situations like this, or just be more open-minded to another person's way of thinking. Because they could be going through the same shit that you are, but you'll never know.